Few years ago, when I was in my early 30s, living in a quiet Scandinavian town. Back then, late-night walks were my way of unwinding, a ritual to clear my mind after a long day. My neighborhood was generally safe, or at least it had been, for years. But things were changing. Violent crime, mostly tied to gang activity, was creeping in, casting a shadow over the once peaceful streets. Still, if you kept to yourself and stayed alert, trouble usually passed you by, or so I thought. One chilly night around midnight, I set out for my usual stroll. The air was crisp, the streets silent except for the faint hum of distant traffic. My route took me past a tall apartment building, a familiar landmark where a retired teacher from my old school lived. She was probably in her 50s by then, a kind woman who'd always had a warm smile for her students. As I approached the building, I noticed two figures pacing near its entrance. They moved with a restless energy, their silhouettes sharp against the dim streetlights. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe they were residents. Maybe they were waiting for someone. But something about their movements felt off. As I got closer, I saw one of them rise onto his tiptoes, craning his neck to peer into a ground floor window. His companion, meanwhile, picked up a stick from the ground and wandered across the yard, his steps deliberate. My stomach tightened. This wasn't casual loitering. They were casing the place, preparing to break in. I'd stumbled right into their plan. My presence didn't go unnoticed. Both men froze, their heads snapping toward me. Their eyes locked onto mine, cold and calculating, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. My instinct screamed at me to move. I veered left, away from the building, onto a narrow path that led past a school and across an open lawn. The area was eerily empty, no people, no cover, just a wide expanse of grass under the pale glow of a street lamp. I glanced back. The men had started walking in the opposite direction, but their movements felt staged, like they were trying to throw me off. I quickened my pace, my heart thudding in my chest. The path curved, and as I rounded the corner near the school, I caught sight of them again. They were crouched behind a bush, their figures half hidden in the shadows, watching me. There was no way they'd ended up there by chance. They'd followed me, circling around to cut me off. The realization hit like a punch. If they weren't up to something, they wouldn't have gone to such lengths to track me. I was close to home now, but the final stretch felt like a gauntlet. My mind raced for a way out. Acting on impulse, I slipped off my jacket and held it up, letting it dangle, like a decoy to distract them. Then I broke into a casual run, not too fast, not wanting to provoke a chase, but enough to put distance between us. My house came into view, and I slipped inside, locking the door behind me. I stood there, breathless, waiting for any sign they'd followed. Nothing. The street outside remained silent. I got lucky that night. If I hadn't turned left, if I'd kept walking straight into the darker, quieter streets, I'm certain they would have cornered me. Robbery was the best-case scenario. I didn't want to think about what else they might have had in mind. I still take late-night walks sometimes, but they're shorter now, 10, maybe 15 minutes. I stick close to buildings where the lights are bright and people might see me, just in case. Story 2, the sleepover intruder. 5 years ago, when I was 15, I hosted a sleepover during the winter holidays that I'll never forget. It was a stormy night, the kind where rain lashes against the windows and thunder rumbles like a warning. I'd invited my 5 closest friends, Kai, John, Nick, Robin, and Marcus, guys I'd known since we were kids. My parents were away on vacation, so Robin's uncle Blake, a laid-back but tough-as-nails MMA coach, came over to chaperone. My 2 bulldogs, loyal and protective, were also part of the crew. Everyone arrived that afternoon, the sky already darkening under heavy clouds. The weather was classic winter cold, wet, and foreboding. Blake ordered pizza, and we settled in to watch a scary movie. The perfect choice for a night like that. The storm outside amplified every creak and groan in the house, setting the mood for our horror flick marathon. Halfway through the movie, the doorbell rang. We assumed it was the pizza delivery. Blake went to answer it, peering through the peephole first. The delivery guy was tall, about 6 feet, with a strange, unsettling expression, a wide, frozen smile that didn't reach his eyes. Blake later told us the guy gave him an instant bad feeling. He handed over the pizza without a word, that creepy grin never fading. Blake paid quickly, shut the door, and tried to shake off the unease. We laughed it off and went back to our movie, the pizza warming our hands as the storm raged outside. By midnight, the movie was over, and we decided to crash in the upstairs guest room. It was a big space, perfect for a group sleepover. I claimed the bed with Nick, while Kai, John, Marcus, and Robin spread their sleeping bags on the floor. Blake stayed downstairs, sprawled on the couch, binge-watching his favorite Netflix series. We chatted for a bit, trading dumb jokes and ghost stories, before drifting off to sleep. Then, a sudden shake on my shoulder jolted me awake. Nick was leaning over me, his face pale. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice tight with fear. Before I could respond, I heard a sharp knock at the window. At first, I thought it was the storm, maybe a branch tapping the glass. But Nick's eyes were wide, and he leaned closer. "I think someone's trying to get in." My heart slammed against my ribs. We stared at the window, frozen. The knocking stopped, but then a shadow appeared, a figure in a dark hoodie, pressed close to the glass. I couldn't see their face, just the outline, but it was too close, too deliberate. Panic surged through me. I leapt out of bed, raced to the window, and slammed the lock shut just as the figure tried to lift it. In that split second, I caught a glimpse of a crooked, white-toothed grin, twisted and vicious. The rest of the face was a blur, hidden in the darkness. The knocking returned, louder, angrier, accompanied by muffled yelling words that didn't make sense, like my brain refused to process them. I shook the others awake, and we bolted downstairs to Blake. He was already on his feet, alerted by the noise. Without hesitation, he grabbed the bulldogs and stormed outside, us trailing behind, hearts pounding. What we found was chilling. A ladder was propped against the house, positioned directly under the guest room window. The knocking hadn't been the storm, it was the ladder tapping the wall as someone climbed. Blake spotted muddy footprints leading to the backyard and took off in that direction, the dogs barking furiously at his side. There, crouched under a bush, was the intruder, trying to hide. Blake didn't hold back. He charged, the dogs lunging and tearing at the man's hoodie. Blake landed a few solid punches, yelling for us to call the police. The storm delayed the cops' arrival, but when they got there, they arrested the man. What they told us next sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't his first break-in, and Blake was certain it was the same guy who'd delivered our pizza earlier that night. That same unsettling smile burned into his memory. Since that night, I've never let my guard down. My bulldogs sleep in my room now, their steady breathing a constant reminder to stay vigilant. Story 3. The strange meal. Me name is Becky, and I'm from Ivory Coast in West Africa. When I was 6, something happened that still haunts me, a memory that's shaped how I see the world. I lived with my parents in a small, quiet apartment building in a modest neighborhood. There weren't many kids my age nearby, so I spent a lot of time alone. My parents, often busy with work, hired a babysitter to look after me. She was kind but firm, always keeping a close eye on me. One day, I begged to play outside. The babysitter agreed, and we stepped out into the warm afternoon air. Next to our building was a small wooden house, simple but sturdy, with a patch of dirt out front where a group of kids was playing. They were siblings, a bit older than me, laughing and chasing each other. I was thrilled, finally, kids to play with. I asked my babysitter if I could join them, and she nodded, settling on a bench nearby to watch. I ran over, shy but excited, and the kids welcomed me into their game. After a while, the oldest girl, maybe 10 or 11, announced she needed to cook something. I was curious and eager to fit in, so I asked if I could help. She smiled a warm, inviting smile and said, "Okay." She told me to gather small and large rocks from the ground. It seemed odd, but I didn't question it. I was just happy to be included. She set up a big cooking pot over a small fire, and I watched as she dropped the rocks I'd collected into it. I frowned, confused. Rocks in a cooking pot? But I was 6, naive, and didn't want to seem out of place. She covered the pot and let it sit, the fire crackling beneath it. A few minutes later, she lifted the lid, and I froze. The pot, which had held nothing but rocks, was now filled with steaming rice and meat, perfectly cooked, the aroma tempting and rich. I stared, my young mind reeling. How had rocks turned into food? It felt like magic, but not the fun kind, something darker, something I couldn't understand. The girl invited me to eat with them, her siblings gathering around, their eyes bright with anticipation. The food smelled so good, and I was so close to saying yes, my stomach growling. But then my babysitter appeared, her face pale with alarm. She'd been watching from a distance and saw something I hadn't. "Don't eat that food," she shouted, grabbing my hand and pulling me away. We hurried back to the apartment, her silence heavy with fear. She didn't explain, but her wide eyes and tight grip told me enough. Now, at 16, I still think about that day. What kind of magic or trick did those kids use? What would have happened if I'd taken a bite? The memory lingers, a warning that not everything is as it seems. I avoid eating at other people's houses now. The image of that pot of rock-stern food etched into my mind.